So in this primer tool, we are going to be covering Introduction to Basic Data Visualization. So this is not actually basic. We are going to cover a whole lot of topics in data visualization. Hopefully in 30 minutes, you are going to learn how to create a visualization from your data set. And there are about 11 subtopics we are going to be looking at: univariate plots, histograms, density plots, box plots. And if you scroll down, I've actually set them up right here as a review I did so that I can explain it quite easily to you. So there are a whole lot of different kind of plots you can create, and how to interpret them is what we are going to be talking about right here in this class. So let's now get started. I'd like to recommend you also have the page. The procedure for this is actually set out in my website, as well as all the code snippets for this tutorial is available for you here. So if you also look at the link in the description box, you can find it. If you go to kindtonthegenius.com/data science, you will actually, sorry, not here, kindtonthegenius.com/data science, or simply go to type Kindton the Genius in Google data science. You can find this data science tutorials page, and you can see a class on data visualization right here. And this is exactly what we are going to be doing today. And you have all the code snippets for you right here. So let's go ahead to get started. The first thing I'd like to recommend you do, and you can see that the first item says our data set. You have a link here on my website. You can just click on it to download the data set, and you have the data set here. You can just click on save as. I think you can have save as right here, and you can save this file as a .csv file. I actually have this data set, so I'm not going to save it again. But just to show you how it works, in your documents or in some folder in your system, just go to, I have a folder I call data sets, and I have the name of this data set is wind the CSV, and just save it right there in that folder. I call it data sets. So for you, you can actually save it in any other folder in your system, and that is fine. Okay, so I have the data set right now. And what is this data set all about? Because one thing you need to do when you have to analyze data is to understand what the data set is all about, as in the basics of this data set. So this data set is about wine. Right? To make wine, you have to use different chemicals, and you make, depending on the chemicals you combine, it can come out to class 1, class 2, or class 3. And these classes may be qualities, represent qualities, okay? So that's what we have here. We have about 13 different chemicals or features of a particular brand of wine. And this brand of wine, so to keep it simple, we have only 3 different brands, and they correspond to cultivars where this wine comes from. So we are going to be understanding it a little further later on when we actually see this data. I'd like to recommend you subscribe to my channel, because in this way you kind of motivate me to keep making this lesson. So please subscribe to my channel. And also, if you have any challenges or any comments, please let me know in the comment box below this video. Alright, so I have my data set, and I have Jupyter Notebook open, and I have this data set folder right here, and I can scroll down. You can see that I have it available here, wine.csv. Alright, so let's go to start. Let me take out this for now, because we are not going to be needing it, and let's go to start from the scratch. One thing I like to do is to keep the tutorial page open side by side with actual page I'm working with. So let me create a new file, new Python 3, and I'm going to click on Untitled and call it class 2, and class 2 will be data visualization, that's class 2, and I'm going to just rename. And I'm going to set this one this way and put it side by side with the tutorial like this, okay? One thing I would like to show you is the complete tutorial on plotting, basic plotting. You can find it on this page. If you just scroll down, you can see everything about plotting with matplotlib.pyplot. This is a library or a module in Python. So you have 9 modules there, or 9 tutorials. You can learn everything about plotting and using different kinds of plots. Is a hat plot, is a formatting your plot to the different colors and a whole lot of things. You can learn it from here. But today we are talking about data visualization. Data visualization is a bit different from ordinary plotting, because ordinary plotting, maybe you have X and Y and you have to plot X against Y. You have this simplistic kind of plotting we normally create in high school, where you have plot X against Y. That is plotting, but that is not what we mean by data visualization. Here in data visualization, you have a large data set and you want to see how this data set actually relates, or how this data set provides a trend you want to understand. So let's go ahead to get started right now. And I'm going to start from the first part, where we've actually obtained our data set. And the first part is univariate plot. Univariate plot is simply how does individual components of this data relate. Okay, let's just continue working instead of talking. So let's obtain our data set. So I have the path to my data set in my file system. If I go to my file system, I can just go to where this data set is located. Let me see, give me 1 second. So let me go to my file system right here. And if I go to data sets and scroll down to data sets, and I have wind.csv, I can just right click and copy the path name, okay? And I'm going back here and I'm going to simply say path is equal to this, okay? All right, so this is the path, and we now want to import. However, before we import, we need to use path is equal to. We need to import 2 modules. Okay, so I'm going to just tell you something. Permit me to actually paste this 1 second time. If you have this file as a CSV, you can import it using pandas.read CSV. But if you have it as Excel, XLSX, you need to import 2 additional models. So let's import it as a CSV, and later we talk about Excel. So I'm going to say import pandas as PD. And I'm going to run. I'm going to now say wine data is equal to pd.read_CSV and specify the path. And let's see. All right, so if I look at the wine data, let's see what is in there. Okay, so we have our wine data imported now. Okay, so yeah, so if let's say this is part 1. So if I use read CSV for the Excel file, it will not work. And that is why in my website, I think I should have the code for reading it. Yeah, so this very code on my website is for reading the Excel file. But this simple code I used in this very tutorial here in this page here is for reading the CSV file. Okay, so let's proceed. And the next thing is that we want to move to the next step. Now you've seen the data set, and you can look at the shape, you can look at the dimension of the data set. For instance, you can say wine data dot shape, and this is going to give you the dimension of this data, which is telling us 14 columns and 178 rows. So give me 1 second, let me just increase from this. Okay, perfect. All right, so the next thing we want to do now is to plot a histogram. Histogram simply gives you a vertical bar representing each of the features. So you'll be able to know which feature has higher values than others, and that will be a simplistic way to visualize your data. But anyway, we have to just start from there. So the first one is the histogram, and you can simply say wine data. So you have to actually, so give me 1 second. Okay, so you have to create like the visualization layout of how the histogram is going to look, or how it's going to appear. Because if you don't create the layout, it's going to plot it in a very small space. So I'm going to create a figure plt.figure. Now, what is plt? plt is matplotlib, the PyPlot coming from a PyPlot coming from matplotlib. We are going to import it as well right now. So specify a figure that has a fixed size of 15, length of 15 and a height of 20, and specify the axis. Seconds. So I'm going to say a axis is equal to figure dot get current axis, and now I'm going to say wine data. Now I'm going to do the actual plotting dot hist and specify ax is equal to ax. Okay, and then I'm going to show plt.show. Now it's not going to work because I have not already imported the module plt. So to import the module plt, I'm going to say import matplotlib.pyplot as plt, and if I run it now, I should be able to see the data. Now, this is the first step in visualizing your data. What does this tell us? This tells us, gives us insight about individual features. For instance, we have the wine, and we have the values of the wine, values between 2.0 and 2.1. Maybe there are more values between that range. From 3.0, we have some values. There are some missing values that does not exist, like 1.5. We don't have values of wine to be 1.5, and so on. So you can actually just immediately see a visualization of what kind of values are available in your data set. And now if you also look at the ranges, you can see that the ash has a range of from 0 to 50. We have malic acid have a range of 0 to 60. Then alcohol is lower, like it has a range of 0 to 95 or thereabout, but wine has a range of 0 to 70. So you can actually provide basic interpretation of your data from a histogram. Okay, so let's now proceed. Let's now proceed with the next part, and this is density plot. What is density plot? It's similar to histogram, but in this case, it provides a curve. So instead of squares, it provides a curved line. So it's basically the same thing, but in this case, it's a curve. I'm going to copy the plot for the same plot for histogram and use it for density plot. So I'm going to paste this right here. And now to change it to density plot, we simply use wine data.plot and specify, specify ax is equal to ax, and kind is equal to density, okay, and specify subplots is equal to true, and the next one is layout. So yeah, layout is equal to 4 by 4, a grid of 4 by 4, and share x is equal to false. Actually, I'm going to allow you to spend some time to read up this by yourself, so because I'm not going to explain everything one by one. Okay, so if I run this code now, it's going to give us the density plot here, and it's basically similar, but in this case we have curves. It shows us curves, as you can see. So it also gives us the ranges here from 0 to 3, 4. Yeah, so basically this is tells you the distribution of your data, the attributes of this data. Now there's something I put on my website. You can have different kinds of density plots. So now you can change the kind here to line. If I change it to line and then I run this code again, and you can see it becomes a line plot like this. So in research, sometimes we use line plot instead of density plots. And you can also play around by changing it to different things. You can actually create the same histogram by changing this data.plot to the kind to hist. So let me try it. I've not tried it before, but I think it should work. Yeah, it seems not to be working perfectly well. I'm going to just try something else. Let me try bar. Let's see. All right, so this gives us a bar plot. So I'm going to go back to I think we are talking about, okay, so type is density, that is where we came from. Okay, density. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. We have box plot. Box plot is also called box and whisker plot and provides a visualization of each attribute of the data set. It draws a line in the middle value of the attributes and a box around the 25 and 75 quartiles, that is first and third quartile. I explained this in a different video, and you can check the description box of this video. So in this case, I'm going to be using exactly the same thing. So I'm going to paste the same code right here. So in this case, I can actually just change to box, and yeah. So what is happening here is providing a box and a whisker. Okay. So this helps you to see a box around the 75 and 25 quartiles. So in this case, you have the median to be somewhere in between the box, and in this case, you have the box centered around the median. But honestly, I'm not very good in interpreting this box plot. I think you can take some time to read it up. So all these are what we call univariate plots. Let's now go to multivariate plots. Multivariate plots tells you relationship or correlationship between the variables in your data set. So the first one we want to talk about here is correlation matrix. Correlation matrix tells you the correlation between the variables. For instance, you have fluorines, you have ACL, which is, I think this is I don't know if it's aluminium or what, I don't know. What's the relationship between the value for aluminium or ACL and Mg, which is magnesium? And things like that are done by correlation matrix. So again, I'm going to simply create a correlation object. So I'm copying and pasting so that we can just save time. Now this might not work. It might not work because I have not calculated the correlation. So you have correlation is not defined. So to get the correlation, I'm going to create the correlation object by saying correlation. Correlation is equal to line data dot core methods is equal to Pearson. Okay. So this is a correlation matrix. Actually, this is a visualization of the correlation matrix. Now to see the correlation matrix, I'm going to simply type correlations. I think I explained this in the first part of this correlations. It's going to be like this. I already explained this in the first part, what these figures mean. It tells you the correlation, whether it's a positive correlation between these variables. So the variables are arranged in a layout of rows and columns, so you can easily understand it from the first part. All right, let's go to the next part. And the next part is the scatter matrix. The scatter matrix is similar to the correlation matrix, but in this case, let me just see. Okay, so we have two ways of providing the correlation matrix. This is the second way to provide the correlation matrix. The scatter matrix is similar to the correlation matrix, but it tells you how much one variable is affected by another variable or the relationship between the variables. So I'm going to also copy these and use it here. So this is about the scatter matrix. Yeah, so before I do the scatter matrix, let me just show you a bit, something about slicing your data. So assuming you want to slice, use part of this data, I think you can just say wine data here and have these two items. Okay, yeah, so it works. So you can actually take only a few of these attributes. So if I add two more, for instance, I add this. Okay, so now I'm slicing out a few of these attributes. So to do that, simply specify two square brackets against the data set name and then specify the attribute you want. So you have this wine data, simply specify two square brackets here like this, and inside in single quotes specify the slice of data you want to use. I've talked about data slicing in the first part of this tutorial before now. Alright, so what next is left? I think we are done with this class, except that we can actually use Seaborn to provide also the correlation matrix as well. So I'm going to copy for the code for the Seaborn, and again I'm going to just run this. I think it gives us exactly the same thing. So once you see, okay, so this is the correlation, the scatter matrix. But now let's slice part of this data instead of using all of them so that it kind of becomes clearer. So I'm going to comment this one out and I'm going to use this. So let's see what we have right now. So we now have only a few of this data right here, and you can see how it looks like. So you can see from this visualization, you can see how sparse your data set is, each of the features of the data set is. Yeah, so you have ash related to alcohol. You can see the relationship not very strong. So as for interpreting these graphs, I think we can devote a different class to actually focus on interpreting visualization, because actually doing visualization is different from interpreting this visualization. I'm not an expert in interpreting this chart, but I think I can take some time to make a lesson devoted to interpreting the visualization. Again, if you want to learn more about plotting in Python, I have a full tutorial right here made up of 10 parts, or 10 of them. And let's say I go to one of them, just take out this advance here. If I go to the step-by-step here, and you can see I'll have the complete tutorial for plotting for creating different kind of plots, and explaining what all these plots are and how to create them yourself. So I'm going to stop here. I've given you everything you need to visualize your data and also to learn how to plot in Python. So this is the second class following the first class, which is just a primer and not the full data science class. Now, if you want to continue in data science, there is data science in 40 days. These two classes I did now, they are just primers, but the data science in 40 days covers complete data science with everything, every bits and pieces of code and bits of mathematics you need to know for data science. It's covered in data science in 40 days. You can see the link in the description box of this video. Or you can also click on this card that shows up right here in this video, and it can take you to data science in 40 days so that you can take some time to learn data science. So I'd like to stop here. I'd like to recommend you take some time to go through the materials here on visualization and plotting in Python, because it's going to help you a great deal. If you have any challenges, please leave me a comment in the comment box below. And I remain Kyneton the Genius. Remember, subscribe to my channel and let's keep in touch.